Let's move on into our next. Let's finish out the, I'm not used to saying let's finish out the rankings so soon because usually we're doing 1 through 30 or 1 through 32, but with 16, you only get 2 segments. So before we get into everything, if you have not checked out our 9 through 16, make sure to check out that for our fantasy football rankings for the defenses and special teams. But let's go through our top 8, starting off with number 8, the Denver Broncos. Then at number 7, the Houston Texans. Number 6, the Los Angeles Chargers. Number 5, the Baltimore Ravens. Number 4, the defending Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles. The number 3, we have the Minnesota Vikings, my Minnesota Vikings. Then at number 2, the LA Rams. And then at number 1, the Jacksonville Jaguars. And the first team I'm going to bring up to you, and this is the first one that I just want to throw out there. Can only talk about them for a little bit because this is the extra team I threw on top, the Denver Broncos. Because for me, I had them almost the lowest out of the top 8. I think I had the Texans the lowest out of these teams.
Yeah.
My concern with the Broncos is, yes, they bring in Case Keenum. Yes, they bring in a competent quarterback, you could say, because the big question for him is, was last year a fluke or was last year for real? And the thing I wonder with this team is, with bringing in Case Keenum, for giving that offense a shot in the arm and actually giving them a quarterback, how much pressure and how much weight is going to be on this defense this year? Because if they have to carry most of the weight, I feel like this defense will not break, but bend to a major degree this year when it comes to fantasy points.
I mean, they weren't an amazing defense last year. They really were not that great, but the team itself was not that amazing. They were 5-11.
They did add Bradley Chubb, which is a good pass rushing.
Yeah. I was going to say that I love that you talk about a player. The first one you mentioned is Case Keenum when Bradley Chubb's out there.
Well, that's the headline player was Case Keenum because of the position he plays.
Yeah, sure.
And because of their need at that position, although John Elway's they believe in him. Their general manager.
They believe in Case Keenum. And you do bring up the good point of, is Case Keenum the real deal, 1, but 2, enough to keep the defense off the field? I mean, that's been the theme of the day so far is defenses that are on the field a lot
have more opportunities to give up points.
Yeah, they're going to lose points for you. The Denver Broncos with Bradley Chubb, that's fantastic. I think the thing that the Denver Broncos are going to do, we're saying the Bradley Chubb like it's his defense. It's Von Miller's defense still. But they're going to sack quarterbacks. I mean, that's what they're going to do. That's where you're going to love having the Denver Broncos because they're going to get to quarterbacks. They're going to force mistakes. They will be a turnover good defense as long as Case Keenum isn't also turning the ball over too.
But that secondary, are you scared of it? I know they still have Roby out there. I know they still have Chris Harris out there.
Yeah.
But, I mean, this is also a team that traded away Aqib Talib this season and got rid of him. And I just say, look at the secondary, and I wonder, will this team just be all right, they're getting after the quarterback, and if they don't get after the quarterback, they got nothing?
Well, I do think if they're giving a quarterback time to decide what to do and throw the ball, then yeah, they're going to run into issues. But, with guys, of course, like Brandon Marshall, not the one on the Seahawks now.
I love when people start tweeting at him because Brandon Marshall, the wide receiver, starts playing like crap.
Chubb with Von Miller, with McDonald, with Wolf, they have guys who are going to get to a quarterback. They're going to make an impact. It's not a question of can they get the pass rush going. This pass rush will be there. And it will be there to where if you don't believe in the backfield that much, the defensive backs, that's okay. They will be elevated by this great pass rush because that's how it works. Now, the problem is when they do face some of those elite offensive lines, sure, that'll get exposed a little bit with the defensive backs. But that's going to be a great thing that helps them. The problem for them is exactly what you're saying with Case Keenum, because I don't know that I believe in Case Keenum outside of the Shermer offense.
Well, and the thing that helps their defense is, I don't know if it helps or hurts, but right now I look at their schedule, and I don't know how to feel about the schedule. Because first off, I'll start with the division. I don't know how to peg this division this year because, yes, if I start throwing out names, you'll be like, wow, those are some really good offensive names. But I have questions about Oakland because I just don't know what that team is going to be with John Gruden at the helm. Then I have the Kansas City Chiefs, where basically it's the same system. It's the Andy Reid system with a new offensive coordinator.
And a new quarterback.
But it's Patrick Mahomes, and what am I going to see out of him, the young quarterback, compared to the proven Alex Smith in KC? And then you have LA, where maybe they're poised now to take this division over. I know
a lot of people think it's their
defense
division this year
in a second, but I mean, I wonder if, like, okay, that's the toughest opponent you're going to have this year in your division. Then I look at the other games where it's like Seattle could be a tough one. You got a tough quarterback, but we'll see what we get from that team this year. Baltimore, where it's like, is that team...
That game is primed to be a low-scoring game, I think.
Not just low-scoring, but I prime that one as Joe Flacco's throwing interceptions, getting sacked by that defense. That's what I'm thinking. Then you could have a rookie quarterback when you play the Jets. The Rams will be tough. You'll have Arizona. I don't know how because I don't know which quarterback's going to play. I just know it's not going to be Mike Glennon. Then you have Houston Week 9, Deshaun Watson. If he's healthy and the Deshaun Watson we saw last year, that could mean trouble. Big Ben could mean trouble, but then like Cincinnati's easy, Cleveland's easy for me. And then San Fran, which I'm going to throw that into the hard pile just because of Jimmy Garoppolo. This schedule could be a mix to where it's like this defense is really good some games, but then other games it's like, wow, they ran into a team, and I only got 5 fantasy points from them this week.
Yeah, I mean, they're ranked as our 8th defense. Mm-hmm. For a lot of leagues out there, that is the bottom part of
that means
defenses.
You are the last starting defense I am taking.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're an 8-man league.
If you're an 8-man league, if you're a 10-man league, you're just going, this is the I missed out on most of the good ones, but, you know, at least I got a good extra running back.
Yeah.
You know, 12, same thing. So the Broncos and the next team we're going to talk about, well, maybe when we eventually talk about the Texans, those two are the question mark defenses for a couple of reasons that we're going to get into. For the Broncos, this defense didn't perform as well as they should have last year. It's that simple. And a lot of it was a terrible offense. Yeah. So now with that being kind of fixed, and for losing, they also lost a 1,000-yard rusher. So that's important to remember as well. It's just that question mark of, is the offense going to be good enough to support the defense? Because the defense can't do it on their own.
Well, the defense I want to bring up before we go on into your Texans is basically very quickly staying in the same division.
Go to the other side.
The Chargers.
Yeah.
And the big question for the Chargers, not fantasy, just overall, is have they fixed their rush defense? Have they fixed their defense against the run? And for me, when I look at this defense, I think that A, the Chargers are primed to take over this division this year. 2, they have the offense, they have the offensive weapons to aid the defense and keep them off the field and rested, so when they go out there, they are rested. And they also have guys who, with the run defense, I'm not quite sure if they fixed all of their problems there. However, the thing I do know is that front of Melvin Ingram, Corey Liggett, Mabane, and Bosa, they're going to get after quarterbacks.
Pass rush is awesome.
They are going to get after quarterbacks all day, every day. Oh, and in the secondary, they added a little guy called Derwin James later in the draft, who was an absolute steal.
They lucked out with that for sure.
Mark.
I mean, Joey Bosa got 12.5 sacks last year. They already had Boston with 5 interceptions last year, so they already were doing what you want, getting to quarterbacks, getting turnovers. That pass rush was deadly last year. It should only be better. I mean, it's really that simple. It should only be better. The secondary should be better now, and hopefully this offense performs better, because when you look at teams that throw the ball, nobody's throwing the ball better than the Chargers last year. They were throwing it all over everybody. The problem was they couldn't run on anybody.
Yeah.
Then when you look at the defense, they didn't let anybody score on them. 17 points a game. That is fantastic for fantasy football. Now, they were not as amazing as you'd hope scoring points themselves, but these are things that should have hopefully been fixed, should hopefully be kind of redeeming factors. They hit the defensive side of the ball so hard with the draft. drafting exclusively in their first 4 picks, exclusively defense, then moving to the offensive side of the ball. So there's telling you right now, we know what we need to make better to be one of these best teams. We got Phillip Rivers. We got our, our running back. We've got our wide receiver. We've got our offensive line, which is pretty good. We just got to make this defense unstoppable.
Yeah, and I mean, for me, because I think that they're going to, I honestly think it could turn into we look at this team and go, wow, they're 5-1 in the division. That's how, or 4-2. They are winning record in the division.
Yeah.
Because virtually, there's going to be 1 or 2 games that are different. Virtually, they have a similar schedule to the Denver Broncos. So the similar teams I railed off for them are the same that the Chargers are going to have to play. But I just feel like the defense is more stacked, and I feel like the quarterback is better, which makes the offense better than the Broncos, which is why I had the Chargers ranked higher than the Broncos. But let's get into the team you wanted to talk about, the Texans, which for me, the biggest shot in the arm that they're going to get this year is that J.J. Watt's back and healthy.
J.J. Watt being back healthy? I don't know, because J.J. Watt gets hurt a lot now.
Well, I'm saying, beginning of the year, he'll be playing and not on the bench because he was injured last year.
And they're a team that really didn't get to get that early young round talent because obviously they had Deshaun Watson now. Deshaun Watson's got to come back. He's got to be healthy. And so far, all signs are pointing to the fact that he will be very healthy. But this is a team that when Deshaun Watson was not there, passing game was not good. The run game was still fine. They let everybody score.
And the question
as
is,
many
how
points
good
as
is
they
he going to
wanted.
be? How good is he going to be coming back from that ACL injury?
Yeah.
Because during Super Bowl week, I'm going to say it again, I saw the interview he had with Dan Patrick, and his jeans had one of those rips right at the knee, and you saw the surgical mark right on the knee. Oh, it makes me cringe.
Yeah.
Oh, it makes my knee itchy, too.
And I think a lot of people are going to sit there and say, I know that J.J. Watt's there. I know that Clowney is there. I know they've got a good defense. But anybody could score. I could score on this defense last year.
You want to know something that's funny, too? If they would have kept their pick, I know they wouldn't have gotten Deshaun Watson for it, so that's one thing. But if they would have had their pick this year, the defense could have gotten Denzel Ward or Bradley Chubb.
Would have been nice. Would have been nice.
But, I mean,
But Deshaun Watson's pretty nice.
So, I mean, there's that. I'm not saying they shouldn't have made that trade.
Exactly. Deshaun Watson's pretty nice. Actually, in that case, they didn't have Deshaun Watson. They probably would have been even higher in the draft.
Yeah. They could have gotten anybody
they wanted. Exactly. But they probably still would have taken
He only
Ward or
played,
Chubb.
4 games, 6 games last year before he got injured? Deshaun
I thought
Watson.
it was like 5 or 6.
He didn't play a ton of games, so they didn't have him for the whole year.
No. He had enough.
Maybe a quarter of the season.
Enough to throw almost 20 interceptions.
True.
I'm sorry, 20 touchdowns.
True.
He played 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he did play. He played almost half the year.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, with this team, I want to rank them high, but there was a part of me that's like you said, oh, well, is J.J. Watt healthy? Because he always gets injured. So for me, it's always this team gets injured. That kind of played into it and why I had them in the top 8, but the lowest out of my top 8 teams. Because it's Houston in general to me, ever since Bill O'Brien took over, has kind of been like, if there's anything to describe this NFL team, it's Murphy's Law. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong. Yeah. And that's just what happens. They get the worst injuries at the worst times, mainly to their best players like J.J. Watt. And are they going to stay healthy this year? Which kind of seems like some might say, well, guys, that's kind of the cop-out way to look at it, because look at what this team will do when they're 100%, but are they going to be 100% for the whole year?
And historically, we're looking at the fact that they aren't ever really 100%. So, and no team's 100%, but you guys get what we mean. The Houston Texans are one of those ones where when you look at them on paper, 100% draft them. But it comes to we've talked about it. The tolerance that you have for risk. Are you willing to risk that? Do you believe in J.J. Watt and Clowney and all these guys to stay healthy? Do you think that they will? Do you believe that Deshaun Watson's going to be healthy? Because the man is a guy who is not afraid to be hit. And those type of guys get hit a lot. So, personally, if I had the chance to draft the Houston Texans, I'm not sure that I will. I'll hesitate at least.
I would, and
because of injuries.
I know this sounds stupid because I put them at...
And I had them ranked even higher than you. I had them at 5.
Yeah, this is going to sound real stupid because I have one at 9, one at 8. If I'm not afraid of injuries, I draft the Texans. Let's say I'm 8th. I'm League of 8.
Yeah.
I'm drafting the 8th defense off the board. I would, if I'm afraid of injuries, I might take the Saints over the Texans if I'm going off of my personal rankings of like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, this team is good, but it's like, you know what? They get injured, I'm going to go with the Saints and be safe. Like, that's what it's going to be if I have to compare those. Now, if it's them or the Panthers, I'm not really high on the Panthers. I'm not clawing up as much as Mark. I'll take the Texans. It really depends who that other team is. Hell, I might even take the Seahawks or the Patriots, who I had lower over the Texans.
No, I would not do that.
If injuries really scare me.
Yeah,
it depends on if injuries really scare me when I get to the draft. Let's close this part of the rankings out with a debate.
Yeah.
Both you and I had the Rams and Vikings tied for second. They both had 29 points. Here's how we had it. I had the Vikings at second. No duh. I had the Rams at third. You had the Rams at second. The Vikings at third.
Naturally.
So what I'm going to tell you, I'll take the Vikings. You take the Rams. Why'd you have the Rams as your second-ranked defense behind the Jaguars?
So the thing for me with the Rams, I mean, they made so many fantastic improvements to their defense. And their defense was already good. Without a doubt, they had a good defense. Now, the problem, of course, for the Rams that some people might be afraid of is, can this Jared Goff-led offense be as successful as it was last year? And obviously, it's not just him. This is a complete team. I look at the Rams as an incredibly complete team. Not saying that the Vikings are not, but the advantage that I see for the Rams over the Vikings, because I debated it for myself, the Rams do not play in the NFC North. The Vikings do. The NFC West scares me less than the NFC North does when it comes to a defense and the players and the teams they have to face. Because, I look at this and I think about the fact that none of these teams were terrible last year. I mean, you can make an argument that the San Francisco 49ers were terrible until they got Jimmy Garoppolo.
Well, until he played.
Yeah, exactly. Until he was playing out there. But
because they didn't play him right away.
The Arizona Cardinals have a quarterback that most likely will get injured and then a rookie. The Seattle Seahawks are a team that's kind of falling apart a little bit. The defense is not as good. They still got a lot of great pieces, but they still haven't really addressed the offensive line, which has needed to be addressed year after year. The San Francisco 49ers are, even if you are a big Jimmy Garoppolo believer, you at least have to be able to admit that, but he has to be able to do it again. Because if Jimmy Garoppolo cannot perform the way he did perform in those 6 games, then obviously the San Francisco 49ers are not a team that's going to be just fine without him. They still have a lot of holes. I'm not that scared of the rest of this division. And the fun fact about this is actually the fact that the LA Rams will be playing the NFC North this year, part of their thing, but at least they don't have to play them twice. They don't have to play them twice, so that makes it a little bit easier. I just think that the Rams' schedule is just a little bit easier than the Vikings schedule, who's got to go up against an Aaron Rodgers, a Matthew Stafford, this Matt Nagy offense. I'm not willing to put Mitch Trubisky's name out there first, but Matt Nagy's offense, they're both going to play the Eagles. They're both going to play each other.
They both play the Seahawks.
The Vikings, unfortunately, have to play Tom Brady. I don't believe that the Rams do that. The one advantage I think the Vikings have, they get to play the Jets.
See, but this is the thing. And for defenses, especially for that Patriot game, that might be a game that although I have the Viking defense, this is the thing with these defenses where, the Vikings, I'm not going to be afraid of that Patriot game because for that game, I'm treating it like a bye. I'm going to bench my defense, play a matchup that's better.
Sure. But when you draft a team, you want a team that's going to be
more
there.
Consistently. But if you're, that's the thing with defenses, and this more so we should have probably talked about in the last segment than this segment. The great thing about defenses is, hey, I'm not really positive on this matchup. I'm going to go and get this defense to play the better matchup. And
somebody will be playing the Browns that week. Now, we keep making fun of the Browns, and the Browns should have a better offense this year.
Yeah.
So maybe we should pick a different team to make fun of. But you get the point.
They went 0-16, so until they win a game this year, I'll make
still
fun.
there.
Yeah. One win. But the thing that
in 2 years.
The thing that I find funny about this Viking defense, and I'm trying to figure out in my head why it was like this fantasy-wise. Let me just run through really quick all their points against last season. New Orleans week 1, 19 points. At Pittsburgh, 26. Tampa Bay at home, 17. Detroit at home, 14. Chicago, 15 at Chicago. Home against Green Bay, 10. I believe that was the game where that was the one where Aaron Rodgers got injured. Baltimore at home, 16. Cleveland on the road, 16. Bye week. Then they basically, besides 3 games, turned it on. At Washington, 30, so they didn't do well that game. The Rams only gave up 7 points. At Detroit, 23. At Atlanta, 9. At Carolina, 31. Then Cincinnati at home, 7. At Green Bay, 0. Chicago, 10. I know you could say those last 2. What were the Packers playing for? Nothing.
Yep.
What were the Bears playing for? Nothing. But
they were playing to get their coach fired.
I find it funny that this defense, you look at the first 8 games, not terrible with the points against.
Not good either, though.
Well, not amazing.
Yeah.
But, you know what? For winning games, that's keeping it to where they're trying to win games. Then it's after the bye, besides the 3 road games at Washington, at Detroit, and at Carolina, they didn't let a team score above 10 points against them besides those 3 games.
Sure.
So, to me, I wonder, and the thing I was trying to get through my head and kind of think about, but I don't really know if the numbers back this up, but I'll throw it out anyways. Could it be that by the time we hit the bye, Case Keenum was our established starter?
I think that helped.
And that's when he really got on his roll.
And the other thing of it, too, but you also put it out there of teams like the Green Bay Packers and the Chicago Bears weren't playing for anything here. So there's a little bit of that.
Green Bay in that last game didn't have Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, exactly.
But they did have Aaron Rodgers kind of in the first one. They only scored 10 points.
And kind of.
Three INTs that
He
game.
gets himself hurt. But
3 INTs.
With the Vikings and Case Keenum, they had this dink and dunk kind of offense that Shermer loves. I don't think you're going to get that. You're going to get an Eagles offense. You're going to get something that looked like Carson Wentz last year. Let's move the ball down the field. Now, not Chip Kelly. Let's move the ball down the field, but faster. But the flip side is, to be fair, the Rams are that same kind of offense with McVay. It's we're going to score a lot of points.
However, and here's the thing I want to throw out is last year the Rams scored 153 total points. The Vikings had 128, and I'm looking at ESPN. The reason why that they are that far apart is some would say, Ricky, the Rams scored so many points. How could you have the Vikings even close to being second? The Rams had 2 defensive touchdowns against the Colts, 2 defensive touchdowns against Jacksonville, a defensive touchdown against Arizona, a defensive touchdown against Philadelphia. That is 4 defensive touchdowns.
Yep.
6, 12, 18, 24 points, all off of defensive touchdowns, which basically, if we take those 24 away, closes that gap major. Huge.
Sure. If you take away certain points, obviously they'll be closer.
Whereas the Vikings, they only had 1 defensive touchdown, and it was a interception return to the house against Cincinnati. So, to me, I wonder, are the Rams going to be able defensively?
Well, they're a better defense this year. They should be.
They did add some names. However, are they going to be, are they still going to be that team that takes the ball away and gets into the end zone? Are the Vikings still going to be that team that, hey, we're just going to try to win games? We're going to be a defense that wins games. We're not going to care. Not that they care about what goes on in fantasy. Jones-Drew kneeled at the 1 because he wanted to screw over his fantasy owners.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if that's going to be the same case. Plus, with the Rams' offense, and this is minor, but I'm still going to throw it out, are teams going to have a better idea of what to expect from McVay and Goff because now they have an entire year of film.
It's definitely possible.
It's a minor thing. I'm not going to say it's a make or break thing, but if that happens and the offense is hindered in some way and the defense, like we said, has to play more. The
big question is, Ndamukong Suh, he's out there. I mean, you got multiple guys who are known for penalties. But is that going to be something that hurts the Rams?
Because you're basically shortening that field and making it easier for an offense to score. Any team that we didn't talk about that you want to mention?
I think that the rest of them are surefire things. I mean, the Jaguars, there's no doubt there. There's no doubt about the Eagles or the Ravens. Are they still going to be at
the end of the year? Are we still going to think the Jaguars are the best fantasy defense, or do they take a step back from last year?
I don't necessarily think they'll take a step back from last year. I think they'll still be good.
Yeah, I
believe in them still.
There's a reason I put them number one.
Yeah.
And I think I had them last year as my defense in fantasy. The one that I'm interested the most about is the Ravens. And the reason why is if you look at, let me see if I can pull up these team stats again. If I go to give and takeaways from last year, Baltimore had the most differential, and I believe they had the most total takeaways. They did. They had the most total takeaways, one more than the Jacksonville Jaguars. Jacksonville was a plus 10, though, because Blake Bortles.
Yeah.
22 INTs, 12 fumbles, whereas Jacksonville had 21 INTs, 12 fumbles. So that is one where people might be saying, guys, you might be criminally low on the Ravens defense. But what are we going to expect
They're
from
number
that
5.
team? We're
not low on them.
Hey, if there might be someone that has them higher than the Eagles, has them higher than the Rams or Vikings. I think that you could make a case, if you wanted to, for the Ravens to be a top 3 defense, but I would not. I would put them right where I did.
I would be too worried about potential Joe Flacco things.
Yes, because I had them at 5. Basically, if I'm looking at my top 5 compared to ours, my top 5 is exactly the same, except I flipped the Vikings and the Rams.
Yeah.
Whereas yours, you have the exact same top 4 with the Chargers. The only thing you think is you flip the Texans and the Ravens.
Yep.
Where you had the Ravens out of your top 5, Texans in your top 5, and I had that vice versa. But anything before I should throw it on to them for comments?
No, let's see what they got to say.
Mark's like, no, we pretty much talked about almost everyone.
We did pretty much talk about everybody. That's the nice thing about when you only got 8 teams.
And this is where you guys come in, camera shuts off, looking at the logo on YouTube, but it doesn't matter. We're going to be moving on a little bit. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section about our 1 through 8 defenses and our rankings in total if you're listening on podcast services around the world.